All right, so if you clicked on this video, you're probably in the military, just like I was, not making jack diddly squat, or you just had your first baby, or you just got married, or you bought a house. You know, those little booger eaters take up a lot of money, especially when you got like 3 of them in diapers. So in this episode, I'm gonna show you how to make extra money while you're in the military. Hey guys, welcome back. In this episode, I'm gonna give you at least 7 different ways to make extra money in the military so maybe you can eventually get out if that's what you're planning to do, or just have a better lifestyle, or own the nicer home, or take better vacations when you have leave. So stick with me until the very end and I'm gonna show you how I eventually got out of the military because I was making too much darn money. All right, so it's 2010. I just got out of basic training, went to AIT in Fort Gordon, Georgia, and now it's November 2010 and I'm moving to Germany. We're moving out of the country. I've never been out of the country, and I'm now put up in a house. I'm living off post because I was married and just immersed right into the culture and the economy. Well, there was one thing I noticed that it was really hard to do in Germany because they'll only ship one vehicle. So the married couples, you know, we're sharing vehicles. And when you live off post, like I'm stranding my wife for almost 12 hours a day because I'm like 30 minutes off post. You know, I'm living on the economy with the Germans. I don't speak German. I'm not speaking the Deutsch, but I had to learn it. And one thing I saw, there was quite a demand, and that was for affordable cars for like soldiers like me, because we didn't want to leave our wives stranded. I wanted to leave the SUV with my wife. So I found a car for like $300. It was in the junkyard on post, and we had to like zip tie the bumper to the car. We had to like do little things. I'm not sure. It just needed all kinds of work, but I found one of the mechanics in my company and I paid him like $800 to help me do all these things. So now I have $800 in repairs and I have like another $300 for buying the car. So I'm at like 9, 10, 11. I've got $1,100 into this car and I have a car now. Well, about a month later after I got this car going, they said, hey Brent, we're shipping out. We're going to Afghanistan for 1 year. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm not gonna leave this car sit for 1 year. There's probably somebody out there, another soldier coming in that's interested in this car. It turned out to be a staff sergeant, an E6. I was an E3 at the time. So an E6 bought my car for $5,000. $5,000 because he didn't want to leave his wife stranded. He had the money, so he purchased his car for $5,000 that I had $1,100 in. That's like a $3,900 profit for an E3. That was huge. So I technically drove the car for free for a couple months. That way my wife wasn't stranded. I put some money in the bank and then I deployed to Afghanistan. So that was the first way that I made an additional income in the military. When I came back, I purchased another car. This time it was a little bit more expensive. It was $1,000, but I borrowed the funds from my buddy that was like a crazy saver. He saved. He never left the barracks, but I borrowed the funds from him. I borrowed the $1,000 and I said, hey, I'll split the profits with you when we sell this car in a year, because I knew we had another deployment to Afghanistan coming up pretty soon. So we got the car all shined up. There was no repairs needed on this car. I waxed it. I cleaned it all up real good. We bought it for $1,000. I drove it for exactly 1 year and sold that one for $5,000. And I split that $4,000 profit. If you're following me, I've got $1,000 into this car and a little bit of like sweat equity of me cleaning and waxing this thing. I might have put 5 hours into cleaning it, which that's crazy. I didn't put 5 hours. It was more like 2 hours. But I drove the car for free for 1 year and I split the profits with my friend. His name is Jay Santos. If he's listening to this video, he called me his Jewish friend because I was always making money. I take that as a sign of respect, and I really love how he always like kidded around with me and told me that. But I gave him $2,500 right before our deployment, and that felt so good. His $1,000 turned into $2,500 for him. So he got his $1,000 back plus $2,500 profit. That is a way to make extra income in the military. All right, so I talked about all these deployments to Afghanistan. Just because I was deployed doesn't mean my entrepreneurship bug went away. I was still making money. So I talked about making money selling cars. Another way I made money was cigarettes. Our PX was always out of cigarettes. And one thing that you should know about soldiers is they like smoking. Well, I wasn't a smoker. I don't smoke. I would go and buy cigarettes from the local Afghans. I would purchase these cigarettes and bring them on post and sell them for like $5 a pack. And that was cash money. And this really accumulated because I had a connection. I found the Afghan guy. He would sell me like these Marlboro Light cigarettes. And then my friends would be happy because they didn't have the time to go out and get these things. And I would just take, like, it didn't take that much extra time to do this. I just always wanted to make an additional income. So I would purchase cigarettes. Another thing I would do is I found out about the AFN, the Army Family Network. We can get AFN in our bunk houses. And basically I had to just run a little wire. It was like 50 foot of wire. So I went to the Special Forces compound, asked if they had any cable wire, and literally like paid the guy like $5 for a spool of cable. And I started running wire to all my friends' rooms at nighttime when we get back from missions, or we would do it on our off times. So I'd be running wire and we would get these cheap TVs and they would pay me $25 every time I ran wires. I must have did this for 100 rooms. So this money would add up. So I was making additional income while deployed. All right, another thing you can do when you are in the military or maybe you're stationed somewhere, buying a house is the absolute most guaranteed way of becoming, very wealthy by the end of your enlistment. If you purchased a house at every duty station, you would own at least 5 houses after it's time to retire from the military if you're planning to do it 20 years. But let's just take it on one example, one scale. The Army pulled me out of Afghanistan on the second time to send me to ROTC. I was going to be an Army officer. I got accepted for the active duty green to gold program. I had been applying to this for years, and I got accepted. And they actually only chose about 180 active duty soldiers that year. And by this time I had hit E5. I was a sergeant. So I got my E5 salary to go to school. Well, I bought this big house right next to the college, and I had all these extra rooms to rent out. So I rented out the extra rooms to make an additional income and literally lived there for free. I think after all the bills were paid, after the mortgage, the lawn service, the internet, the electric, I still had an extra $150 left over each month after receiving the income from my roommates. All right, so let me break this down even more. So how did I buy this house right next to the college? It didn't take any money out of my own pocket. I actually used my VA loan to buy this house. It was a little bit of a fixer-upper. It was a bank-owned house and it needed some paint. It needed like all new appliances and a couple toilets. But this was super easy stuff. I was able to do this with sweat equity. And it's funny, my neighbor across the street, Dennis, was an amazing painter. So he came over every night and helped me paint. And this was a beautiful house. So I had people that were super interested in like actually paying me money to rent this house. And these were great roommates. Like one guy was like mining Bitcoin, still a friend of mine today. Another person, he was working for Northrop Grumman. So he literally had, a top secret clearance. So these were reputable people renting my room. So definitely when you're doing this, you want to run background checks on people and you just want to make sure you know who your tenants are and have very firm rules like no parties, no music without headphones, because you don't want your house turning into like a party house. Like I wasn't there for that. I had a strict curriculum. I was taking like 7 courses, so I was pretty busy with my studies, and this had to be a quiet home for me, but it really turned out well. I got appreciation in this house. The house was like literally appreciating every single year. I was paying down the mortgage. I was able to depreciate it. It's a tax thing that allows you to write off, the house. When you own rentals, you hardly pay any taxes. Let me tell you, that's like the best kept secret of the rich. The tax code is written to provide housing and the government gives you like a benefit for that. So think about this. Look into buying rentals. All right, I've got 3 other ways, the final 3 of the 7 that I promised to you. But before I do, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Guys, I talk about all things making money, buying land, selling land, flipping houses on this channel. Please subscribe, hit that subscribe button right now. All right, this next thing I'm gonna talk to you about is absolutely amazing. So I talked about going to college and renting that house out. Now it's time to move to Colorado. Me and my wife purchased a beautiful home next to the Cheyenne Mountain Resort right there in Colorado Springs. And after we buy this house, put a lot of money in it, and we had just had our first baby, like we were kind of broke, like we were spending tons of money. And now it's time for me to go to a 4-month mission in Fort Knox, Kentucky. So now I'm gonna leave this house sitting vacant for over 4 months. And Airbnb was still kind of new at the time. So we popped our house on Airbnb and we rented this thing out, and we were making like $4,000 a month gross. Our mortgage was only about $1,000 a month. So we were pocketing almost $3,000 grand a month for 4 months. This was an extra boost in earning additional income while I was in the military. And guys, I talk about this in another video, the pros and cons of owning an Airbnb. Check that video out. And definitely, you can find out more about doing this, but this was a way bonus on adding additional income to our lives. Another way is you can actually get into real estate. One of the fastest, easiest ways to getting into real estate with no money and no credit is wholesaling houses. You've probably heard this before. What I would do is I would go out on my spare time, or I would be driving by a house that looked a little bit like shabby, like there was high weeds, or the roof had those blue tarps on it, or it needed painted, it was peeling paint, or there was broken down cars in the front yard. When I would see houses like this, I would put a little note on the door saying, hey, my name's Brent, I'd like to buy this house. Call me. Bam, have my phone number, and this worked. I would get houses like this. Or I would go and check out PropStream, and I would check out the notice of defaults where people were behind on their mortgages and they weren't paying their mortgages. And guys, you can get access to PropStream, a 7-day free trial, by going to the landsharkslist.com, the landsharkslist.com. There's a link below in the description. You can get a free trial of this to go and find these properties that people are not paying their mortgages. Sometimes it's called Liz Pendants. Sometimes it's called Notice of Default, or the NOD. Basically, they're in pre-foreclosure. They're eventually going to lose the house. So that's another way of building additional income. Getting these houses under contract at a discount and then selling your contract to a home flipper or a cash buyer. And then there's more ways to find out more about that. I talk about it in other videos on this channel. That's why you got to subscribe. And the final seventh point I'm going to make is like the holy grail of what I was able to build in early 2016 that ultimately allowed me to get out of the military in 2018 with a cash flow of over $10,000 a month coming in from land payments. I was buying land at crazy massive discounts, like 10, 20, 30, sometimes 40 cents on the dollar. I was buying this land and I would pre-sell it to a buyer that would give me a down payment that would ultimately almost get all my money back out of the land. And then I would seller finance it to them for 3 years, 4 years, sometimes 5 years. And that allowed me to get like $400 a month payments, $500 a month payments. When you add these things up, it equaled over $10,000 a month coming in to my bank account every single month. That was the ultimate holy grail. I had finally stumbled upon it. And guys, I teach people how to do this. If you're interested in checking out more, a tried and true method of what I built while I was in the military, head over to thelandsharks.com. That's thelandsharks.com. Schedule a call with my team. I'd love to see what your real estate investing goals are if you're interested in that, or building a business that serves you and your family and others while you're in the military. Check us out. God bless. Hope you enjoyed the video.